Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new expanded deck profile. Today we're going to be going over Orbeetle VMAX Stall. And this is one of my favorite decks to play recently. Just built it actually about a couple days ago, so I've only gotten maybe about 10 games in with it. Except just, when you have like 160 decks, you play a little bit of everything. But this is based around the Orbeetle VMAX with its Eerie Beam ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your active spot, you may put one damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. The attack is also relevant, so we'll talk about it. Grass, colorless, 50 plus 50 for each energy attached to your opponent's active. You don't use it often, it's mainly here for Eerie Beam, but it is a thing. Now this deck is very good in concept, and it was actually a good standard deck at a point. The thing that has drastically changed, though, is the damage outputs from when this was in Standard. When this was in Standard, the max damage output would be something like a Zacian V's boosted Brave Blade, which without a Leon was not getting a one-hit KO most of the time. Unfortunately, in Expanded, 310 HP is not as high as you'd like. Realistically, you'd love like 330, 340, but Orbeetle's a very small Pokemon, HP-wise in the game, always has been on every single card. So you kind of have to live with that. So this is a deck that cannot face things that want to KO it. If you run into like Turbo Dark or Shadow Rider, chances are you're probably not going to win. That said, you can sometimes cheese some wins out with G-Max Wave, just being able to one-hit KO a Pokemon with a lot of energy on it, something like a Blissey V, for instance. Let's talk about the deck. We have 4 copies of Orbeetle V. I have these wonderful Trainer Gallery ones. Orbeetle VMAX is one of my absolute favorite cards released in the Sword and Shield era, the Trainer Gallery one. This one with a Bugsy right here, probably an Azalea City or something like that. The attacks are almost irrelevant, but we will talk about them as well. 180 HP is really low though, so keep that in mind. Strafe 20, may switch it with one of your bench. That can sometimes be good, but realistically you can only do this with your one counter energy, so you're probably not using that. And then Mysterious Wave 50 plus 30 instead of 50 plus 50. G-Max Wave does 50 plus 50, this one does 50 plus 30. Still potentially useful with counter energy, but don't rely on those attacks. This is kind of just to evolve. Obviously, the Orbeetle we had before. Just take a moment. This is T0 is one of the best artists in the Pokemon TCG by far. This is one of the best cards ever. I love this card. We played 2 copies of the Munchlax. Speaking of great art, I love So-So's art as well. With the Snack Search ability, is 60 HP, very nice free retreat on that as well. Snack Search, flip a coin. If heads, put a card from your script on top of your deck. If you use this ability, whether you flip heads or tails, your turn ends. So this is great for recovering, and since we're usually not going to be attacking, except for the very rare cases with something like G-Max Wave, or taking the win with Tapu Lele, we don't mind ending our turn on a Munchlax Snack Search to get back important items we'll talk about later. We do play 1 copy of this Tapu Lele here with the Magical Swap. You're not using Psywave, don't worry about it. And the HP is almost irrelevant. We play it for Magical Swap, which can be paid with counter energy, and you move any number of damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon in any way you like. This deck essentially builds at 3 win conditions at one time. You're going to see I have a lot of mill cards in this deck, and the reason for that is that we want to build towards multiple win conditions. One win condition you're building towards is by spreading a ton of damage on your opponent, and you're usually not going to be spreading enough to ever take KOs on things by themselves. Like bigger, maybe you might get the lower end of things like, Drizzles or something like that. But you're not getting you're not going to get like Crobats and stuff with your spreading. You're not doing enough switching to do that. But what you are doing is you're buying time and you're slowly putting damage on. So you're building for a win con with Magical Swap, where you can move the damage to the appropriate places to take all of your prizes in one go. What you're also building towards is a win con where you could potentially just G-Max Wave twice. If your opponent takes, let's just say, 4 prizes, and they have something like a Shadow Rider out, you can just G-Max Wave twice, and if you're able to take crucial KOs right there, then you can just win with that. And the third win con we're building towards is milling. We'll talk about the milling stuff in a minute. Do play 4 copies of Steven's Rolf. Since we're not attacking most of the time, we want to end our turn by finding what we need or putting back stuff we want. So Steven's Rolf, great setup card. Search your deck for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck, and your turn ends. We don't mind our turn ending, so just get 3 cards from the deck. Absolutely incredible. Would not go without it. Can't play greens, obviously, because we do have basics with abilities and evolved Pokemon with abilities, so Steven's just infinitely better. 2 copies of N here. Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck, and then draw the card for each of his or her remaining prize cards. So obviously, we're going to be going down on prizes in this deck. It's great to have N. I definitely recommend it over Marnie in this specific deck. A lot of VMAX decks benefit more from having N. Could potentially run Roxanne in here if you want. A 1/1 could work. I don't personally like Roxanne because I don't like having a dead card in my deck at the start of the game. For the same reason, you could also play Ace Trainer. We have, 3 copies of Cheryl here. Heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from the Pokemon that were healed in this way. We're not really worried about the energy being discarded. We are just worried about this healing. We want to keep our Orbeetles healthy. They do count as an evolution Pokemon, as it says right here. Evolves from Orbeetle V, even if it's not really an evolution, but you know, whatever. So play 3 copies. Very good card. Absolutely great. One of the great things about Cheryl is that a lot of times, if your opponent has not KO'd an Orbeetle yet, you can actually just switch between multiple Orbeetles and stack up like several hundred damage on each Orbeetle and then get a mass heal off. You can't do that once your opponent goes up 3 prizes in some way, because you don't just want them to have a gust for win. But you can do that in the early game and get a lot of value out of Cheryl. Either way, it's just great to have in the late game as well. Wonderful card. 1 copy of Guzma. Switch when your opponent's bench Pokemon if they're active. If you do, switch your active Pokemon to your bench. Occasionally useful for trapping something, and also just good if you want to just hit into something with G-Max Wave. It's more useful for trapping though, and you can also get an extra Orbeetle spread off if you play it right. You can get a 3rd Orbeetle spread off in a turn instead of just the usual 2 you'll be getting, so it's also good. I don't want to use it specifically for that purpose of getting extra spreads off unless it's going to win me the game that turn. However, Guzma is very good for trapping something like if you wanted to bring up a Pokemon that does not have a float stone and then just see if you can stick it there and spread. It's pretty good for that. 2 copies of Gladion. Look at your face down prize cards. Put one of them into your hand, then shuffle Gladion in its place into the prize cards. So what we want to do is just get pieces that are on prize. We're usually not going to be taking our prizes until the very last moment. Maybe we'll get a few him and haw prizes off of the Eerie Beams, maybe KOing like smaller basics. But most of the time we're not going to be getting prizes until very late in the game, if not taking them all at once. So we want to be able to get stuff out of our prize that's important, especially like specific item and supporter pieces. 2 copies of Team Rocket's Handiwork. Flip 2 coins for each head. Discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. This card is absolutely terrible, but since we're playing towards a mill win con, we do have to play it. You're usually going to flip like 9 out of 10 tails, but that one you flip heads is going to win you the game. So you play Team Rocket's Handiwork. Also puts pressure on your opponent's resources, prevents them from sometimes setting up more, stronger threats that might be able to take out your Orbeetle. 1 copy of Acerola here, another healing card, but one of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it, and all cards dash into your hand. So what I want to use this specifically for is if you do go for a play where you play a Counter Energy early on, we don't really want to discard that because then we have to get it back with Snack Search. So you can actually use that to pick up an Orbeetle. I think it's fine to split 3-1 like this with Acerola. Could potentially play AZ in here, but I just don't think it's worth it. Acerola does a good job of getting your Pokemon back in your hand. Can potentially be risky. Do watch out when you rebench your Orbeetle V. It's now going to be a gust target from your opponent, so keep that in mind. I went through and split with you. You could go 4 Cheryl if you want, not play an Acerola, but works pretty well having the versatility there. 1 copy of Faba. Choose a Pokemon tool, Special Energy, or Stadium in play, and put it into the Lost Zone. It's just an absolutely incredible card. You just want to be able to get rid of if your opponent's got tools that's saving them for like potentially HP, if your opponent's got special energies they rely on, something like an Ultra Necrozma, you can win just by Fabaing 4 times and getting rid of their stuff and then watching your item use and recovering with Snack Search, right? You can just actually win the game like that, which is pretty sick. It's not a super realistic outcome though, because sometimes they'll just like KO your Orbeetle V turn 1 and then you feel pretty bad. But that is always an option. Faba gives you a lot of options against all kinds of decks, and I think it's worth playing in any Lusamine deck. We have 1 copy of Misfortune Sisters here, another milling card. Look at the top 5 of your opponent's deck, discard any number of items you find there, and shuffle all the rest back into your opponent's deck. So, just a great milling card, usually guaranteeing 1 to 2 cards off of Misfortune Sisters. I've got a 4 to 5 before. but they're usually more rare. It's very effective in the early game against all these very strong setup decks. So even if I'm like, it's just like turn 1 and you have no other supporters you want to use, like you don't have Steven or N in your hand, and you're just like, well, you know, I'll just toss out a Misfortune Sisters and hit like 4 items, and you know, on a good day, then you know, that's like a super strong power play. You're really putting the pressure on your opponent, making it harder for them to set up, giving you more time, hopefully, to set up what you want. 3 copies of Lusamine here. Put 2 in a combination of supporter and stadium cards from your deck pile into your hand. Just allows you to recover all of these supporters we just spoke about. You're going to be recovering Cheryl a lot, Guzma a lot, and the milling cards to pressure, as well as Faba. And then your stadiums are also quite good. You do want to have stadiums in play. You don't want to give your opponent control with things like Path of the Peak or Silent Lab. Silent Lab obviously turning off your Munchlax. Path of the Peak turning off your Orbeetle. Path of the Peak's a little bit more dire, though Silent Lab also means you can't recover around it. So pick your poison, essentially. Lusamine is very good. I would not play without it. 3 copies works great because you want 2 at all times. So you don't want to be prizing 1 and not being able to get the combo off and having to Gladion to get it early on. Because this deck is a longevity deck, it has plenty of time to use Lusamine. Lusamine's been absolutely great. Play Lusamine. Great card. Somehow not banned and expanded. So, crazy things, huh? 4 copies of Nest Ball here. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So, because we're not taking advantage of any play down abilities like Dedene's Day-Day Change or Crobat's Dark Asset, we can actually just put a Pokemon right onto the bench. Don't have to worry about playing Quick Ball for the discard, anything like Mysterious Treasure. I could play Netball, but I just don't see any reason when you're not searching out Grass Energy and you need to get these guys an occasion to. So just having Netball here, or Nest Ball, works pretty well. Could potentially play Battle VIP Pass. I like Nest Ball because this deck is not a very fast-moving deck. A lot of times turn 1 you're just going to Steven, and then after turn 1 your Battle VIP Pass is dead, and you can't set up if you did that. So Nest Ball works pretty well. 4 copies works pretty well. 3 copies of Evo Incense here. Search your deck for an evolution Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This only finds you your Orbeetle VMAX. Oh my god, this art. This art. I'm going to order this card after this video. What the fuck? This card is so good. So you just find your evolutions, and 3 copies work pretty well. Same thing where we don't have to get any play down abilities or anything like that, and we don't want to discard cards, so Evolution Incense works. Good. Could potentially play Ultra Ball there. Up to you. 1 copy of Hisuian Heavy Ball. Look at your face down prizes, reveal a basic Pokemon you find there, put it into your hand, and then shuffle Hisuian Ball back in its place, similar to Gladion, but only for basic Pokemon. And it's an item. So we want this to get our Munchlaxes if we need our game-winning Lele there as well. And sometimes it's just great to have another card that just grabs you an Orbeetle early on so you can evolve that, because you're typically going to want 2 Orbeetles in play, sometimes even 3 Orbeetles in play. So it's very good. Potentially cuttable, though. I like it. 3 copies of Lillie's Pokédoll. Play this card as if it were 30 HP basic Pokemon. At any time during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active, you may discard all cards from it, put it on the bottom of your deck, and it can't retreat. And if it's knocked out, your opponent doesn't get any prizes. So that's a lot of words to say it's a basic Pokemon that you're going to retreat into and let your opponent hit, and they're going to be really mad because they're not hitting your Orbeetle while you are Lusamining cards back, and then you laugh. They don't want to hit this. It potentially can be used to prevent you from decking out, but you're not going to be decking out very often with this deck because that part of the clause where it says if you're active, you may put discard all cards attached and put it on the bottom of your deck. That can prevent you from decking out in a very odd pinch. I don't see that being too relevant, though. It's just mainly used for you're going to retreat your Orbeetle into this Lillie's Pokédoll and laugh as your opponent. Just absolutely just seethes, right? 4 copies of Max Potion here. Heal all damage from one of your Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from that Pokemon. Another thing with Cheryl and Acerola, but just more healing cards. This is not an item too, so it's extra flexible. On those turns where you use Max Potion, you can use your Lusamines to get back other cards. Gives you a lot of flexibility there. I would not play any less than 4 Max Potions, but very good. 1 copy of Counter Catcher. You can only play it if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. So this is a little bit of a greedy play because I used to run 2 Guzma in here, but I didn't find myself needing 2 Guzma most of the time, and I wanted to get greedy. So what this is for is turns when I'm behind on prizes, I can gust something and then use something like a Faba to get rid of a Floatstone, or a Misfortune Sisters to mine the deck for Floatstones, or a Cheryl to heal while I'm gusting. Because I just want to play items or get my gust off and be able to play my supporter for turn. So that's why it's there. One copy works pretty well. Obviously, everything can be got back with Snack Search. Keep that in mind. One copy of Scoop Up Cyclone here. Put one of your Pokemon and L cards, attach it into your hand. Just an Acerola on an item card. Again, you can have your cake and eat it too by getting to pick up your Pokemon and then still getting to play a supporter of your choice that turn. For optional A-specs that swap out, I don't actually recommend anything. I think Scoop Up Cyclone is by far the best. And the reasons for that is that computer search seems like not that great because you don't really need to search that many pieces. You have 4 Stevens to do that for you. Dowsing Machine seems like really strong, but the thing with Dowsing Machine is that you don't need to recover your trainers because you already have Munchlax do that for you. So unless Munchlax just turned off the whole game, you really don't need to worry about recovering your trainers. So Dowsing Machine is not great either. Life Dew is not going to matter because you're having a Munchlax and play the whole game. So theoretically, you could force your opponent to hit through 3 Orbeetles, but they're just going to gust a Munchlax at some point in the game, or use a pings or something on the Munchlax to get a free prize there. So, I like Scoop Cyclone. Play that. 4 copies of VS Seeker. Put a support card from your pile into your hand. Obviously, don't always want to be Lusamine. Early game, you can't be Lusamining. Versus Seeker gives you outs to get your supporters. Absolutely necessary to run 4. There's potentially some tech supporters you can put in here if you want. There's plenty of working around you can do. I just like these ones. And 4 versus Seeker, make sure I always have the supporter I want. 2 copies of Rescue Stretcher. Put a Pokemon from your pile into your hand, or shuffle 3 Pokemon from your pile into your deck. So potentially, if things go wrong, your opponent starts gusting up your Munchlax, you potentially have to lose a Lele because you start it and your opponent kills it. Things are bad. Usually you don't have to recover Orbeetles too much. We play 2 copies because we want to be able to hit it consistently, don't want to have to Gladion for it out of the prizes. I could see this being cut down to 1 copy, but I just had a game where I really wanted it and didn't have it because it was prized, so I played 2. Why'd that move? Get back here. 2 copies of Jubilife Village. If you have Beach and you want to play it, play Beach. I don't have Beach, so I can't play it. Once during each player's turn, that player may shuffle their hand into the deck and draw 5 cards, and then their turn ends. So you don't really want to set this up if you are Lusamine chaining necessarily, because it's not really helping you in that specific case. So that's where Beach would obviously be a little bit better. Again, I don't have Beach. But Jubilife is good early game. It's good in the mid game as well. When you don't have a Lusamine combo you want to be pulling off, if you're looking for specific pieces, you either want to be going Steven for them, or you want to be Jubilife Villaging. And Village is pretty good. It's going to be used as your primary stadium for setting up. So it's very good there. If you're not using Steven, here's 2 more outs to get some cards that you need. 1 copy of Chaotic Swell here. Whenever either player plays a stadium card from their hand, discard that stadium card after discarding this one. So obviously I mentioned that we don't like Path of the Peak. We don't like Silent Lab. We don't like Rough Seas. We don't like, trying to think, there's something, like the one cave that heals from Metal and Dragon Pokemon. I can't remember the name of it. We don't like those, so we keep Chaotic Swell in play so they stay away. Also helps a lot against matchups where they rely on those stadiums. Stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex really likes its Silent Labs being in play all the time. Not saying that the deck's going to have a good Shadow Rider matchup regardless, but I'm just saying that, yeah, get rid of their Silent Labs. They're never getting them again because we can just recover this with Lusamine. Remember that these stadiums are recoverable. There's potentially some other stadiums you could run in here. I ran Turffield at one point, but I didn't like it because I typically did not have that much problems finding my Orbeetle VMAXs unless they were prized anyway, and Turffield doesn't help with that. So you could run it if you wanted. I just don't want to. Crystal Cave, that's what it's called. Yeah, you could potentially switch it to a 1-2 count just because you want more Chaotic Swells. That'd be pretty good, but I like Chaotic Swell as a 1 count because it can get it back infinitely with Snack Surge and Lusamine. 2 copies of Recycle Energy. Provides colorless if it's started from play. Put it into your hand instead of the discard pile. So what this means is that if I attach it to these Pokemon, which coincidentally have 1 retreat cost, I can just retreat them and it goes back to my hand. Now you may be saying, why not play Floatstone? Why not play U-Turn Board? U-Turn Board is especially applicable. Let's bring U-Turn Board up just to make a point here. So U-Turn Board, bring that up. U-Turn Board reduces your retreat by 1, meaning all the guys in this deck would get free retreat. If it's discarded from play, put it in your hand, so this card pile. Similar to Recycle Energy, isn't it? The reason we do not play U-Turn Board is because U-Turn Board is targetable by Faba because it stays in play while it's attached to a Pokemon. Recycle Energy clears itself from play when you retreat, putting it back to your hand, meaning it can't be Faba'd. If we're getting a Recycle Energy's Faba'd, we're going to start losing the game. You don't want to do that. We want to be getting off multiple Eerie Beams while not being worried about getting Faba'd out of our win condition. Obviously, your stadiums could be Faba'd too, so be careful about that. But yeah, that's why we play Recycle Energy over a U-turn board. It's definitely better. There are some potential tools you could play in here. Some fun ones are, for instance, the Poison Barb. That's a fun one where when your opponent attacks you, they get poisoned. There's also the one that confuses, Ear Ringing Bell. Yes. When your opponent attacks you, they're confused, which can be potentially good for disruption. Just kind of fun ones there. I'm trying to think of some other ones that you could play. Spirit Mask is always a fun one conceptually, but not actually, where if someone attacks you, they discard a card from your hand. Potentially, if you wanted to live some hits, you could play something like a Big Charm. This would be very strong for if you just wanted more HP, or if you just wanted to live fire decks, because again, this deck just lives to fire decks. Nothing you can do about that. You could play Weakness Policy. I just don't think it's really worth the space to play these tools. It's just not worth it. Maybe cut the stretcher, put a tool in. I couldn't come up with any tools that I particularly needed in here, though, so yeah, you don't need them. One copy of Counter Energy, as we said. If you're behind on prizes, it counts as 2 of any energy, but when not attached to GX or EX. Good news! Because of bad card wording, we can attach it to Orbeetle VMAX. But mainly it's here for Tapu Lele's Magical Swap. You want to use Magical Swap to win the game. Either that or put your opponent in a place where they can't possibly win by KOing everything and basically putting you between one turn and win. So, also very good. This deck is a lot of fun, though. Go check it out on the expanded ladder. Avoid Dark Box like the Plague. Avoid Shadow Rider, Volcarona. Basically any of the Firebox decks are bad news bears, so stay away from those. But it's a lot of fun, and you know, maybe you have some changes you want to make to the deck. None of my lists are perfect. I'm flawed as a human, as I should be. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like my content, check out my other expanded deck profiles, and I also do tabletop retro content. If you like that as well, go check that out.